I'm Gab, he's Jules, joining us remotely from the great nation of Switzerland with its many cantons. Jules, I'm sorry to say we're still apart. I miss you, man. I miss you, bro. I would sit here and lament the fact further, but there's so much going on. We got to get right into it because we have our two Club World Cup finalists. One of them is Chelsea, who beat Fluminense 2-0. Funny enough, that is not the main segment. The main segment, of course, is Paris Saint-Germain's demolition of Real Madrid.
Yeah, it was an incredible performance again, and I know we will repeat ourselves again from what we said after the Champions League final, or even after many games from PSG in the last few weeks and few months, but they were just incredible again. And yeah, Real Madrid made two massive mistakes, Asensio and Rudiger earlier on, that cost them a lot. But even before that, PSG could have been 2-0 up without two really good saves from Thibaut Courtois. And it's just an incredible machine that Luis Enrique has created. And Xabi Alonso is at the beginning of his journey. Luis Enrique is 2 years on into his journey, and I think that could be seen in that performance. But again, individually, collectively, PSG were incredible.
Well, you talk about how we don't want to repeat ourselves. So I guess we'll have to talk more about Real Madrid in this one because I'm going to come right out and say it. I did not understand Xabi Alonso's lineup. I understand why he was kind of forced into it with absences and stuff, although he did have, of course, Camavinga and Ceballos on the bench. But to this business with experimenting, let me put Vini on the other wing. If Vini and Mbappe plus Bellingham doesn't work defensively, how do you think Vini plus Mbappe plus a center forward like Gonzalo Garcia plus Bellingham plus Arda Güler, who is still learning the number 8 position, how do you think that's going to work?
It's not going to work, Gab, and it didn't work. And I agree with you. That made no sense whatsoever from Xabi Alonso. And again, we can put that on the fact that it's early in his tenure there, and he's still working things out and figuring things out and how to play the best way. And we saw the kind of hybrid Tchouaméni back 3, back 4, midfield, etc. earlier. That worked really well at time. He clearly felt that was not the right option for this game, but he went for something that was even worse. So I'm not sure what he tried to do. And I think he got lucky because PSG could have won this game 6-0, and that would have been even worse for him. So now I think he's lucky in a way of being this is the beginning. He can make mistakes. People will forgive him for mistakes, but that it didn't make any sense. And to be fair, the players looked completely lost in that game, and especially against a team like PSG. I guess you can experiment against a team that is not as strong collectively and as well drilled as this Paris side, but not in a game like this, not against them.
No, I agree. In fact, 20 minutes in during the Champions League final, Mark Ogden, who I was sitting next to, immediately asked our sort of stats and information people, what is the heaviest defeat ever in a Champions League final? And last night he was at the MetLife Stadium again. 20 minutes in on the group chat, he starts asking, what is the heaviest defeat in the history of Real Madrid? Because it certainly looked like it was heading that way, as you mentioned, Thibaut Courtois making those 2 stunning saves, and to me this kind of invalidates the argument about. I always give people a pass for individual errors. They can happen, 2 massive brain farts, one each from Raúl Asensio and Antonio Rudiger. But Paris Saint-Germain were just scything through them. By the way, heaviest defeat in Real Madrid history, March 5th, 1930. Espanyol 8, Real Madrid 1. Yes, there was a time when Real Madrid were nowhere near as good as they have been for the last half century. Jules, when I look at this, I think we also need to know about Paris Saint-Germain, and we will give Real Madrid both barrels. We will talk about Luka Modric. We'll talk about Rodrigo. Sad to see Luka Modric's career end this way, but the fact is, if your final tournament with a club is a knockout tournament, it will most likely end with you losing the game. Let's also remind people, Paris Saint-Germain were without their first option at center back, and arguably, possibly without their second option as well.
Who's the second option?
Well, I was imagining Lucas Hernandez to make it more effective. I know it would have been Beraldo, but still.
You're right. No, Pacho, who's suspended, and the fact that this was the first game that Ousmane Dembélé actually started for PSG in this competition because he was injured when they arrived. He was not really fully fit, fully ready in the semi-final and the quarterfinals. That's why he only came on in the second halves in those 2 games. So Luis Enrique, not trolling Real Madrid at the end, but saying also, by the way, I know this was great and we're in the final, yet another final, potentially another trophy. But we also did it without our best player for so far 80% of this competition.
Real Madrid fans, I have you covered if you don't want to listen to what is sure to be a takedown from Jules and me given yesterday's performance. Please feel free to fast forward 10 minutes or so. But before that, we do have a little more Paris Saint-Germain talk to talk about. Now, I don't. My thoughts on the Ballon d'Or are very, very well known. But I'm going to hand it over to you, Jules, because even grumpy Mark Ogden made the point that Ousmane Dembele, at this point, with yesterday's performance, may well have locked us up.
Yeah, I think so. I think he had before anyway. For me personally, but I think what's done in the final and semi-final. And again, it's not just so much the goal or the assist from yesterday or the one against Bayern Munich right at the end. It's also everything that he does off the ball and the leadership that he has for this team. And Luis Enrique again said it last night after the game. He said, on top of everything well that he does and the goals and everything that he's been doing in 2025, which is incredible again, 35 goals, 14 assists in 52 games. It's a remarkable tally. But it's also everything else, and the fact that he takes his team to winning trophies because he's decisive in all those big games. We said semi-final last night of the Club World Cup, quarterfinals of the Club World Cup, and then pretty much every round of the knockout stages of the Champions League, he was there either with a goal or an assist against Liverpool, against Villa, against Arsenal, even Brest before that, if you want. And then obviously the final where he haunted all the Inter Milan defenders and goalkeepers. He created 2 goals and he was there all along. And yeah, he didn't score in that final, but he'd been so important. And I know Rafinha has had a good season and Lamine Yamal is wonderful. And there are others. Mo Salah as well had a great year with Liverpool in the Premier League. But just nobody can right now even contest the fact that Ousmane Dembele is the best player in the world and he's the best player of the best team in the world as well.
Yeah, so I don't want to delve too far into this, but I feel my point, as you know, I do not care. However, what I think is pretty striking about this Paris Saint-Germain and may impact Dembele's Ballon d'Or is that you could actually pull out a whole bunch of other candidates based on what we know of how Ballon d'Or voters tend to vote. And let's not forget, my view, many of them live in like a little la-la land of YouTube and Champions League finals and nothing else. You could make it, people have made a case, Désiré Doué, even though he really only came on in the second part of the season with all those big goals, to the point that, we had Mark even talking about, Doué against Lamine Yamal, the next player, next GOAT conversation, skipping over Dembele altogether. We've also had Gigi Donnarumma's agent making a case, funnily enough, for his client, because without his big saves, Paris Saint-Germain may not have won the Champions League. You could also make a strong case, I think, for Achraf Hakimi as well. And let's not forget Vitinha. Now, when Real Madrid don't win, when one of their guys doesn't win, people often say, because people think that, I guess, Ballon d'Or voters are Muppets who block vote, that, but look, so-and-so took votes away from so-and-so on the same team, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that might be the case here? Do you think the people who've been so enamored, so inspired by Paris Saint-Germain that they want to reward a Paris Saint-Germain player, they may actually say, no, Dembele was fantastic, but Hakimi was more important, or Donnarumma was more important, or Vitinha was more important, or Désiré Doué. Is this a thing, you think?
Yeah, maybe. Although I think as great as they've all been, and you're right, you mentioned all of them. And
Nuno Mendes, too. He ain't going to win, but still.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think that everybody acknowledges and realizes how that Dembele is still the leader of that team and still the main guy and the guy that makes it all happen with everybody behind him. But this is a wonderful team. As we said, that they might take a few votes away from a few points, because I think you will see a lot of top fives with a few PSG players in them. And that's it. If you can have Dembele first and Hakimi second and Lamine and Rafinha third, for example, that is fine, but that doesn't really hinder too much Dembele's chances of winning it in the end. So we'll have to see, and obviously we'll know the nominees very soon at the beginning of August, and then this will all happen at the beginning of September. So there's not much time anyway between now and this Club World Cup final, for example, and all the votes and the whole Ballon d'Or machine, if you want, kicking in. So we will see, but I still think he's so clear ahead of everybody else and everyone else that he will still win it.
All right, here we go. Real Madrid fans, look away now or fast forward now. I want to start. There's so much blame to go around for this. And I think this is one of the situations where you can blame Real Madrid while also praising Paris Saint-Germain. Doesn't take anything away, pointing out Real Madrid's flaws in this game. But I want to start with blaming somebody who didn't play in this game because he got himself suspended. There's a parallel universe where Dean Huysen remembers that they're 3-1 up 6 minutes into injury time and does not pull down Serhou Guirassy against Borussia Dortmund in the semifinal, and therefore does not get suspended for this game. And with Huysen available to Xabi Alonso, he would have partnered Rudiger at the back. I would assume Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, out at right back. I would assume Raul Asensio would have played right back, which would have given them a defensive option over on the right. And I would assume Valverde would have gone into midfield, which meant that you would have had somebody with legs who at least puts in effort. I don't want to pick on a kid, but Dean Huysen has looked so mature. This was a major sign of immaturity or a major mental error to which we're not accustomed. I think this had a major impact, not in Real Madrid going out necessarily, but in the ease with which Paris Saint-Germain tore Real Madrid apart.
Yeah, certainly they would have been better defensively with Huysen in there, with Rudiger. Asensio has had a shockingly bad Club World Cup tournament, really, if you think about all the mistakes that he made, the penalty he gave away, the fouls that he made, the red cards, and etc. And that showed as well, I think, in the final that he was not to make that mistake so early on. Like he didn't even again before that, he was all over the place defensively when PSG had those early chances too, and 0-0. So it's true that Huysen would have helped for sure. I don't know how much the rest of the formation from Xabi Alonso. I suspect he would have still played with that weird front three of Garcia, Mbappe, and Vinicius. I still think overall he would not have worked tactically what he tried to do in the game, even with Huysen in the back four instead of Asensio. Personally, Huysen better player than Asensio for sure.
Yeah, certainly. I want to go back to this we have to go back to this for a minute. You've got Mbappe, who probably still not fully fit. And he's worth to be part of the conversation, obviously, with his gastroenteritis, losing, 12, 13 pounds, something like that. He goes back to the left. Vini goes to the right, where it's a position where you cannot go into, obviously, you can't go into a stronger foot when he comes inside. What I found most remarkable is you've got, so we've been talking, I talked all of last season, you have two guys who do not work effectively off the ball. We saw a little bit from Mbappe later in the season from a center forward position. But this is just not their thing. It's not what they do. Maybe they will one day, but not right now. And these guys who do not work on the ball and do not track back are paired against arguably the best fullback pairing in the world in Achraf Hakimi and Nuno Mendes. That is basically, to me, that is inviting on the build-up play. That is inviting Paris Saint-Germain into your midfield, where they are met by Chouameni and a guy who has basically never played as an 8 until very recently in Arda Güler, or very rarely played as an 8, and a guy, Bellingham, who sees himself as a number 10 and has played number 10 the best part of the last two seasons. This seems frankly suicidal. And as much as we're going to blame the Real Madrid back four for their individual errors, it's also because there's no filter whatsoever in midfield.
Yeah, I think they were exposed, obviously, too easily, too much, and that midfield three just didn't work. And we saw Arda Güler having some really good performances in this Club World Cup in this midfield, and we said, like, could this be his position? Could he be the next kind of Modric, certainly for the quality of passing than anything else? Sure, maybe he can. It still has a long way to go and a lot of work to be done, as we saw in that game, because they were put under so much pressure. And again, they played against one of the best midfields in the world, really, if not the best midfield in the world right now. And Vitinha, João Neves, and Ruiz are so good, and they're so used to play with each other, and they're so used to play in this kind of system for PSG, and that fluidity and that rotation and the relationism that they have is incredible. So it was always going to be a hard task for any Real Madrid midfield anyway in that game. But yeah, that one didn't work. And then to think that front three could somehow disrupt the PSG defense and rhythm I'm not really sure what really convinced Xabi Alonso to do that. I mean, I don't think Gonzalo Garcia was bad, to be fair. He tried to help. He played a bit as the 10 sometimes, tried to hold the ball up. But the two wingers, Mbappe and Vinicius, were just never in the game. I think one did 10 passes in 17 minutes. The other one was 12 passes in the game. It's ridiculous numbers, really, for players like them. They just were never in the game at all.
Okay, I'm going to try to project forward a little bit here. I think we want to give Real Madrid some good news as well. Eder Militao at the end, when he came on, he certainly showed a lot of will, a lot of leadership, a lot of aggression. If he gets fit and he can stay fit, I think the defense is sorted, and I think you can actually start thinking maybe even of a back three at that stage. I'm just projecting forward, imagining what's going through Xabi Alonso's head. And so I think that's maybe less of an issue. Where I still see a lot of problems, though, is how the pieces fit together in midfield and up front. And maybe you can reinvent Arda Güler as an 8. Maybe you can get a little bit more steel in there with Camavinga. But then you still have to find a place for Bellingham. And then you still have the fundamental problem of Vini and Mbappe. And I'm going to come out and say this. Are they better off? And we've seen him do this, certainly by Leverkusen last season, where he almost said, all right, I'm just going to stiffen up the midfield, not concede, and kind of give my attacking players, well, mainly Florian Wirtz, a lot of license and a lot of freedom. Is that where we're heading? And if that's where we're heading, Jules, do I need Xabi Alonso to do that?
I think he likes the back three with Tchouaméni in there, because then you can come into midfield and have that position that we saw in the quarterfinals and the semifinal, that in the quarterfinals and the last 16, that worked really well for them. And I think Tchouaméni can do that, certainly more than with a traditional back three. I think that could also be an option. And then you can have Güler and Bellingham and Valverde in your midfield, and then Tchouaméni stepping in there, that pushes Bellingham a bit further, and then you have a front two, and you choose whatever you front two you like best. Mbappe, Vinicius, Mbappe, Garcia, Vinicius, Garcia, whatever you want. Rodrigo in there if you want to, although clearly Xabi Alonso doesn't think that he's any good for anything, because he hasn't played for 5 games now at all, not even a single minute. And then you have your 2 wing backs in Alexander-Arnold and Fran Garcia, or Ferland Mendy, or even Carreras when he signs, which fits there really, really well. So there's a few options for them. It's just he will have to sort out. For me, defensively or in midfield, you can find a solution. There's so many options, like you mentioned Camavinga too. You can have a bit of Ceballos. There's a lot of things that you can do that make your defense and your midfield good. Really, it's up front that you will have to decide and find the right combination. If you go with a 2, can you really play with Vinicius and Mbappe as a 2? If you want to go with a 2, is Gonzalo Garcia a really good option or not? Is he ready for a full season, not just a few games there like he did in his Club World Cup, where he was good and scored goals and was important for the team, but can he do that through the whole season in the Champions League, in big games against Barcelona, in La Liga, all those kind of stuff? I'm not so sure, but I'm not so sure that a front two of Mbappe and Vinicius in this kind of system also works, and is also something that where they could be good at, both of them together. So and we don't even talk about pressing and counter pressing and what you do off the ball without the possession. So there's a lot of work to do for him, and I think it's quite daunting to think about all those things that he would have to sort out.
Yeah, I mean, at one point I was almost wondering, is he doing this to kind of send a message to Florentino? Hey, we need to open the wallet again and get things going, and maybe move somebody out. You mentioned Rodrigo there. 5 games, he gets asked about it. He addresses it. 5 games on the bench. I don't even know why he bothered taking him to the Club World Cup. I think the trickiest thing with Rodrigo is that you have a player coming for Real Madrid, so the wages are going to be significant, although probably not out of this world, because he signed when he was very young. But Real Madrid, for prestige, if nothing else, with all their Champions League titles and whatever else, they're going to demand a big numbers. 100 million has been floated in the Madrid press. I think that's nonsense. But even 60, 70, what are you getting?
It's a good question, Gab. I mean, 90, 100, no, don't even think about it. Nobody's going to pay that. And I think they just know that. For lower than that, at 60 is the price that seems to be going for players, for wingers like him. You know, Olise was that price. Nico Williams really close was that price. I think Luis Diaz price would be around that. I think Barcola, if PSG had allowed him to go, probably would be around that kind of price. Maybe a little bit more, but still around that price. So this is the price for wingers anyway. And there's no way Rodrigo would go for more than that. You get players who start from the left-hand side. I think his favorite position where he's been the best. And he's really good. He's got pace. He's a smart kid. He's good with both feet, but especially with the right foot. So all of that kind of works really well. But again, he's been playing in a team that has been so successful because a team that was so good. Can he go to another club and be a leader? If you spend that much money on a player, he has to be one of your best players. He has to be a leader. He has to come in and be decisive again. And I'm not sure Rodrigo. I just don't know. I don't think anybody knows really if Rodrigo can step up like that and have that kind of responsibilities and take them on and go like, yeah, I can be your leader, because he's never done. He never had to do it really at Real Madrid. There was always other leaders, and he was just the guy there in the team that was really good and was a big component of that team, but still not the main guy. So I'm just not sure he can do that.
Hey, I'm going to throw this out there early. We're going to get to Nani Madueke later. But if the argument about why Arsenal suddenly need Nani Madueke and are willing to go in the £50 million range for him, potentially, possibly, is that they could use a winger who can play on both flanks. Hey, look, there's Rodrigo. Here's a guy who can play on both flanks, a guy who's obviously a winner. Just look at what he's won. A guy who, you know, you made the point about needing to be a leader and hasn't another team he goes to. Well, at Arsenal, I'm not saying Arsenal are like Real Madrid, but Arsenal are not lacking for leaders in Saliba, in Saka, in Odegaard, Declan Rice, and so on. So he wouldn't necessarily need to be the main man straight away. I'm just chucking it out there. I'm sure they've thought of it. I'm sure he's been offered to them. Let's see how this unfolds. We have to talk about Luka Modric, though. Look, we've done so many tributes. We've done tributes when it announced he was leaving at the end of the season and so on. He's leaving. He's going to join Milan. We don't know how that's going to work out at Milan, what he has left to give and what role Max Allegri has for him. Jules, what a player for so long, struggled at the beginning, and then became, from my view, possibly their best midfielder since that Zinedine Zidane chap.
Yeah, club legend, of course. Club GOAT, even if you want. One of the greatest that they've ever had. 13 seasons, everything that he won. The 5 Champions League, of course. They, 3 titles, 3 trophies, 3 La Liga titles, or 4 La Liga titles. 4, the Copa del Rey that he won, just everything. But not just everything. It's not just the titles, not just the trophies. It's just the way he conducted himself, obviously, the player that he was, the genius that he was on the ball. Just this midfield engine and creator that just made everything ticked and everything linked together. Really, that whatever front three he had ahead of him was obviously amazing, but then he made that work, and he also made the defense work, and just everything. What a wonderful player. Yeah, and it's easy. And just to you said it beautifully there. Just the one thing, just to top it off, that I would add is, if you're a younger fan and you've seen him, you probably think of Modric first in terms of his passing and his creativity and whatnot, because you saw old Modric. But what I can tell you is, he may look like Johan Cruyff's sort of wussier little brother, but when you use the word engine there, so appropriate. Up until 5 or 6 years ago, Modric was often the guy who, covered the most kilometers on the pitch. And for, again, a physically smaller, not imposing player, he had some real steel about him. He really was a midfield warrior. And it's almost like there were 2 phases of his career. Now that he's older, obviously he can't do the same sort of things. But what a servant he's been to the club. I know some people, when I say, oh, he's the greatest midfielder since Zidane, some people might come out and say, no, what about Toni Kroos? And okay, fine. That's a very legitimate position. Jude Bellingham, might say, hold my beer, give me a couple years here, but that's fine. But for now, I don't think there's any question Luka Modric belongs in the Pantheon. All right, enough Madrid, enough Paris Saint-Germain. How about some quick hits instead? Let's go, Gab.
Chelsea will be playing in the final of the Club World Cup. They beat Fluminense 2-0. That João Pedro, making his first start, stole the show.
Yeah, well, what a debut for him. I know he came on before, but as a starter, the 2 goals against his former club, obviously, where he all started for him, like 10 years. Well, I think he arrived at the club when he was 12 or something at Fluminense. So wonderful story in itself. Wonderful Maverick player, though, because I think he offers you that. He offers you just so much creativity. You're never sure what he's going to do next, but he's capable of great things. And they spend a lot of money for him, over £50 million. But he's already, in a way, repaid some of that by qualifying them for the final.
I absolutely love the João Pedro signing. It gives you optionality, Jules. He can play 9 or 10. Palmer can play on the right wing or can play 10. Obviously, Nico Jackson can offer you center forward or left wing. It's just now up to Maresca to sort it all out.
Some people said it made no sense to sign João Pedro. I just didn't understand that at all at the time. I was like, what do you mean it made no sense? You're right. He brings you so much versatility, different options. He's a better player for me than Nico Jackson, for example. So you can start him as a 9. He would play well with Palmer and Delap. There's a lot of things he can do and you can do with him. So saying that it makes no sense that they spend that money on him is ridiculous.
Silly people.
According to multiple reports, and I'm sorry, Gab, but it looks like Victor Osimhen is staying at Galatasaray. You must be gutted.
I am. Galatasaray apparently, reportedly coming up with a 75 million euros to meet that release clause from Napoli. I just got to take it on the chin. I have to take it on the chin that, people evidently look down upon him for whatever reason. And I'll tell you what, you'll be sorry. Go ahead. Enjoy your Gyökereses and Seskos and Brian and Bumos and Delaps and all these people. Here's one of the top 5 center forwards in the world, and nobody's interested. But let's see if Galatasaray can actually come up with the money. But the terms have been agreed, so it looks that way. All I can say is, Gala fans, the best is yet to come. On Monday, we told you how Nani Madueke to Arsenal is increasingly becoming a realistic possibility. Jules, what do you make of the hashtag no to Madueke trending on X? Is this one of those nonsense trends?
Come on, I just don't understand it. I mean, you might not be too keen on Madueke to your club, but he's a really good player, let's be honest. And yeah, his numbers maybe last season, or this season that he's finishing now with Chelsea haven't been the best. I think it's 10 goals and 4 assists in 40-odd games or something like that in all competitions. But there's a great player. And Arsenal wouldn't spend that money on him. They didn't think that he was capable of stepping up and be a great added value to this team. So whether he plays on the right, on the left, I know he's better on the right to come inside onto his left foot. I get that. I think he can also play on the left-hand side and be effective there. So I don't really understand that kind of Madueke bashing that's happening now on social media.
I mean, what I don't get is there's something else? Did he once say, like, haha, I'm a Spurs fan, Gooners suck, or whatever in the background? There's no past there.
I don't think so.
If the argument is we would rather spend, if he's going to cost this much money, we'd rather spend it on somebody else rather than somebody whose best position happens to be the best position that our captain and best player plays, I can understand that. But if it's something personal, and it feels personal when it's put out this way, yeah, I don't quite get that. I'm on the same page as you on that one.
Bayern Munich are reportedly looking at Eberechi, Eze and Christopher Nkunku to replace Jamal Musiala after his injury. Gab, who do you like most between the two?
So you're talking about Eze, one of my favorite players. Nkunku was one of my favorite players before he started getting injured all the time. Okay, first of all, I'm on the record for this. I would sign somebody who's not going to become an issue when Musiala returns. So I would not sign sort of a natural 10. And arguably, both these guys can play wide, although I think Nkunku's position is much better as a second striker. Between the two of them, I like Eze more. I think he's been more productive. I think Nkunku, you can work a deal. Get a loan deal with an option to buy from Chelsea. Chelsea want his wages off the book. And to me, this makes more sense. And then if you like him, you can figure out how to keep him. You can also play him wide when Musiala returns. You can play 4-3-2-1, play Christmas tree, him and Musiala, whatever. Eze, my concern is this kind of a Wilfried Zaha type situation where he's phenomenal at Palace, one of the best players in the Premier League, and then moves to other clubs, and for whatever reason, it doesn't quite work out the same way as but both these guys kind of past their mid-20s, so that's a factor as well. So for me, I'd lean Nkunku, cheaper, and doesn't get Musiala's way. Jules, we're not done because we have more quick hits.
Yes.
It's time! It's time! It's Texter time! Jules, Lyon have won their appeal with the DNCG, which means they will not be relegated to League Two. I found out, not from the DNCG, but from Lyon themselves who announced it. Some of these things are clear as mud to me, so I'm going to need you to walk me through this. Did our hero John Texter have to step down? Did he sell his shares to somebody else? How did they get out of this?
Yeah, they presented a much better plan and kind of project, if you want, financially to the DNCG than what John Texter did. John Texter has stepped down. He's not involved anymore in decision-making at the club. He's still the owner, obviously, and still, the club still belongs to Eagles Group. But John Texter has nothing to do anymore with the club on a daily basis. Not like before. It's Michel Kang and Michael Gerlinger, the former Michel Kang, who obviously owns the women's side of the club. Michael Gerlinger, who's the former Bayern Munich kind of CEO, if you want, who are in charge now. And for the last 9 days, they put a plan together where they've got more investment coming, more investment guaranteed for the future as well, to make sure that the NCG were happy financially with the assurances that they were given to keep the club up. So that's what they did. I think it's a good thing, obviously, for French football and Ligue 1 to have Lyon in the top flight. It's good for Lyon, even if now they would have to go through a pretty tough austerity period. Obviously, they would have to sell more players and be careful with wages because they can't spend as much money as they would like because they have huge debts. And obviously, John Texter made a mess of everything that he touched since taking over the club. But it's a good ending for them. So let's be happy for them.
Yeah, so a lot of the money coming in, and my understanding, obviously, from Michelle Kang, who is a very smart business lady, and Aries, who are a sort of a colossus of private equity. And I wondered, did these people completely misread John Texter and his plan? I don't know. That's a question for their investors. But the day before, Jules, I just want to follow up on this. L'Equipe reporting, and I'm assuming this was leaked from the DNCG, but leaked from somewhere anyway, that they had more than 50 players, or rather they were paying the wages of more than 50 players, which is interesting when they could only have 30 under contract, including a number of the people at Botafogo.
It's just great, incredible story. If it's true, obviously, I was not able, to be fair, to verify it, and I don't think anybody else either. Nothing that Lyon said or the NCG said either to confirm it or not confirm it, by the way. So, but if that's true, it seems like Lyon were also paying the Botafogo players, and that their wage bill that was so inflated. It was like that because they were playing the Botafogo players, which obviously Botafogo is another club of John Texter's Galaxy, which I would find incredible. I'm not sure if it's even possible to register Botafogo players on the Lyon kind of wage book and wage bill and pay them like that. So I don't know how they would have done it, but yeah, L'Equipe seems to be certain that was the case, which is quite incredible.
I mean, legally, the only way I would have thought is if Lyon acquire the player and then loan him to Botafogo. But then, of course, that would be in FIFA's TMS system, and we don't know about it.
Yeah. And Gab, one of the knock-on effects, obviously, of that decision of Lyon avoiding punishment is likely to be that Crystal Palace won't get to play in the Europa League next season, or might not be able to play in the Europa League next season.
It certainly looks that way right now. Crystal Palace, I think, will appeal their case. I think it's extremely unfair to Crystal Palace as to do a multi-club ownership. Of course, Texter sold his shares in Crystal Palace to Woody Johnson, but A, that came after the March 1st deadline, and also B, that takes some time for the transaction to take effect. Palace have said, what we've said all along, that despite Texter boasting of, I brought Oliver Glasner into the club and aren't I clever and so on, actually, he had nothing to do with the day-to-day running of the club. That was all Steve Parish with the help of Blitzer and Harris, because he only had 25% of the vote. Let's see what UEFA do. On the surface, look, I know there's laws, but on the surface, I think it would be hugely unfair if Crystal Palace are demoted to the Conference League, and they would be, because the reason this would happen is the rules state that if you have two clubs from the same ownership group who are in the same European competition, the one that finished lower in its respective league has to go down, and they go down to the conference. And obviously, Lyon finished sixth. I find this grotesque, especially because Texter now, as you just said, isn't involved in the day-to-day running of Lyon, and wasn't involved in the day-to-day running of Palace, and yet Crystal Palace get punished because of this. It seems very unfair. But if they do go down, who benefits? Hey, we can be happy because it's another friend of ours. It's Mr. Marinakis in Nottingham Forest. They get to move up to the Europa League, and if they win it, they'll be in the Champions League, and that's fantastic. Mr. Marinakis, of course, a close friend who's done a lot of business with John Textor as well. Alvaro Carreras from Benfica to Real Madrid. We alluded to this earlier. Reportedly back on. All right, Jules, 55 million sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, Gabby. It's a lot of money. I mean, even apart from the fact that he was a Real Madrid youth player before, he went to Manchester United. We might still I think they might get a little bit of money for him in this transfer too, by the way, United. 55 is a lot of money. We talked about prices for wingers earlier and how much it would cost you for Luis Diaz, for an Eze, for Madueke, those that kind of guys. 55 right now for left back who can play centre back, I guess. So it gives you a bit of an option too. But who's only had, let's be honest, one really good season in Portugal with Benfica, and that's it. I think it's a lot of money. We saw Fran Garcia being decent in the Club World Cup. They still fell on Mendy there. And I'm not sure how much Real Madrid really need somebody like Carreras, certainly at that price. But it seems that they are okay with it and that they would pay the money. Matteo Retegui is off to Saudi Arabia, Gav. It's a 67 million euro deal from Atalanta.
Yeah, he's joining Al Qadsiya, who, we often remind you that not every club in Saudi has money. And in fact, it's really only the 4 public investment funds, or it was until recently. Al Qadsiya, owned by Saudi Aramco, of course, big oil company. They're chucking money around. Tremendous business for Atalanta, who, of course, only paid 22 million euros from him to sign them. I'm not even sure that they necessarily need him because they have Scamacca coming back from injury to play as their center forward. And of course, they have Lukman and the Prince, Charles Kittelar, and so on. However, they think he's off. I think the impact on the fear in Italy is that it's going to hurt the Italian national side because he will be playing against lower level of opposition most weekends in Saudi. But hey, it's a big payday for him. I'm happy for him. Let's go where you are, Jules, the Women's Euros. After beating England, France beat up Wales 4-1. Though you did get a little scare when just Fishlock equalized, didn't you?
No, you're not scared, really, because I think, there was the gap of level of talent between the two teams was so big. It was just not a good performance from the French overall. They took the lead early, and after that, I think they took the game for granted. I think they took the game for granted from the beginning anyway, to be fair. The head coach, Laurent Bonadei, making 7 changes that not sure he needed to make, really. And after that, it was just very sloppy from the French. After such a good performance against England, where they were really outstanding, I guess with their strongest team, this was more of a B team. I know that, but still, I expected better from them, and it was not really there. So I was a bit disappointed in the end. And they were always going to win, and they won, and it's 4-1, and they very much in driving seat in that group to finish to top it even. But yeah, there was just a few things that I was not too happy with.
I wanted more Sandy Baltimore highlights out of this, and I didn't get them, and I'm disappointed.
England were harshly criticised for their performance against France, although I'm not sure they were harshly. I think they deserved the heavy criticism. Gabs, all now well after they demolished the Dutch 4-0 yesterday.
Yeah, Holland, I thought were absolutely terrible in this game. But it's amazing. You put Ella Toon back where Lauren James used to be. You move Lauren James into the front 3. You're a little more settled at the back. And I thought Holland were really bad. England were really good. Lauren James, by the way, is she actually 2-footed? Is she kind of like a women's version of Dembele? Because that first goal, that's her weaker foot, right?
Yeah, she's amazing.
Unbelievable.
Amazing.
Kota Takai to Tottenham Hotspur is official. Jules, did they need another central defender?
That's a really good question. In terms of numbers, they don't, obviously, because they have so many between Romero and Van de Ven and Donso and Dragusin and even Vuskovic, the young talent that is coming to the club this summer that they bought last year. That's another young talent in Takai, who's probably the best centre-back in the J-League this season. So it makes sense in terms of one great talent for the future, like Vuskovic in a way. But right now, you've got 6, even 7 if you want to count, I don't know, Archie Gray, 8 with Ben Davies, our best friend. That's a lot of them. So I guess Romero might be on his way out. But yeah, that's another centre-back. Barcelona VP Elena Fort says that the Camp Nou might not be ready, actually, until the end of the 25-26 season. Gab, what does this mean?
Well, she means fully ready and in a sense fully operational and all the bells and whistles. We told you they hope to come back for the Gamper Trophy. I think what it means is that for much of the season, this is going to basically be a building site where they're going to open things kind of little by little while they work on the other details. One of the things apparently they have to open are the luxury boxes, because an auditor has said that 100 million you got, 4 luxury boxes from Qatar, you can't actually get that unless they're open. Back to the Euros. Spain got a mini scare against Belgium before romping to a 6-2 win. Jules, once they get going, they're so good.
Yeah, they are good. We've seen every team twice now in this Women's Euros, and they are obviously the best by far. And I don't know if somebody will be able to stop them, and whoever will, they will try, obviously. And if you want to stop them, you'll have to be very good in every department, defensively, offensively. They don't give you much with the ball, and certainly without the ball, you'll have to be very good to stop them, because as we saw, it's 11 goals now in 2 games, 5-0, 6-2, 5 different goal scorers in that 6-2 win against Belgium. They've got players coming off the bench that are so good, that makes a difference when they come on. It's just ridiculous, the talent that they have, the depth that they have, the momentum that they have. It's great to see. Good luck to, not just Italy as the next opponent, Gabby, but also whoever they face next in the quarterfinals and potentially semi-final and final, because it'll be a hell of a contest to face that wonderful, wonderful team. And meanwhile, Gabby, Portugal got a late equalizer against your Italy. Was that deserved?
100% deserved. Italy took the lead. A tremendous goal from Cristiano Girelli, reminiscent of Ale Del Piero against Borussia Dortmund for the old-timers. But Portugal had a bunch of chances to equalize. They deserved their late equalizer. They hit the woodwork. Italy need to be better at playing with a lead and just generally just be kind of less defensive. Just take the game to the opposition. So curious to see what happens next against Spain. They need something out of this game, or at least not get mullered like the other teams to advance. Spain may well decide to rest everybody and play their B team, but frankly, Spain's B team would probably lose the final of this tournament against Spain's A team if they were entered into it. So, I'm not super confident. Sweden rolled to a 3-0 win over Poland. Jules, I guess no more Eva Pajor.
No, it was always going to be a long shot. Gab, this is Poland's first major tournament. Same for Pajor, obviously, who's a wonderful striker, had a great season with Barcelona, but on the road in a team that is growing, but still so young and so inexperienced, it was always going to be difficult. I was at their game against Germany where they were well organized and tried to defend as well as possible, especially in the first half. And then Germany were just too good for them. And then they get the pressure, and they didn't take some of the chances they could have had, but still should have lost that game. And it was a bit the same against Sweden. Sweden are looking good, though. Very good. And another 3 headers for them, headed goals, which is their speciality. We saw that at the Olympics, and they're very good at it. And then we've got Germany, Sweden to decide who's going to be first and second in that group, because the other 2 are obviously already eliminated.
I really felt for those defenders, Jules, because the cross would come into. I felt like over and over, the cross comes in from the right-hand side because the left back can't defend on a weaker foot. And there's that Blackstenius, who's this, the size of the Eiffel Tower in the middle of the box. So good at getting free, and just header after header after header. She could have had 6 or 7, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. And Germany had to come from behind to beat Denmark 2-1, Gab. There was plenty of controversy though in that game.
There was some VAR disallowed goals, which I was okay with. But I think the big and the Germany penalty, which led to their equalizer, also maybe some might feel a little soft, but I'm okay with it. No, the big one was, and so incensed the Danish coach, was Emma Snerle. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly. She was whacked in the head by teammates' clearance and went down instantly. I mean, it looked as if, I don't know if she was unconscious, but she just literally collapsed after getting hit in the head by the clearance. Play continued, and Lea Scholler scored what would have been the winner. And he said, well, the coach said, if there's head injuries, we have to stop the game. That's what we've agreed. I don't know. My personal take on this is, yes, you have to stop the game and make sure that you check on the person. Concussions are very serious. On the other hand, if it's, I think, 10, 15 seconds elapsed, certainly not more than that, from the time the ball hit her in the head to Germany scoring. And it's not like the Danish defenders all stopped playing because she was down. So I'm not going to blame the referee for, for not disallowing the goal or stopping the game. I'm not even sure the referee, who I didn't think was great, even noticed that she went down and that she was potentially concussed. I don't know. What was your take on this, Jules? Am I wrong?
No, I agree with you. I thought it was a pen to start with, and then I think this was an accident where you get the ball in your face, and yeah, I mean, it would have hurt for sure, and it looked like you knocked her out. But then, as you said, straight after Germany were in the box and scored that goal, and I don't think you could have stopped the game. You're right. There's a bit of, you always wait a little bit to see what happens next, and then you stop the game if a player is on the floor with a head injury. It's not straight in that you stop the game. So I don't really see where the controversy is coming from.
Jordan Henderson will rescind his contract with Ajax in a bid to win a place at the World Cup. Is this really going to help going somewhere else?
You know what I think about Jordan Henderson, especially at this stage of his career. I don't think so, but apparently there's a lot of Premier League clubs who've already been in touch for him to join them. I don't know if Sunderland is one of them to use his experience. Maybe the other promoted side, maybe other teams that could do with a leader like him. Great leader, yeah. Not good enough for me to still be in the England squad to go to the World Cup. But Thomas Tuchel called him in his last international break, so I guess he still trusts him, still has faith in him. So yeah, if that's the case, if I suspect Jordan Henderson would have spoken to Thomas Tuchel, who would have said, listen, it's better for you to come back and play in the Premier League if you want to go to the World Cup, then that's a necessity for Jordan to try, obviously, and do that. So I'm not surprised that this is all happening. I expect him to sign for a Premier League club, and then let's see how good he can be this season coming.
I want to see him go to Sunderland, where it all began, where he can team up with my man Simon Adingra and keep the Black Cats in the top flight.
Back to the Club World Cup, Gab. The semi-final between Chelsea and Fluminense looked like a full course, but it wasn't easy, was it?
No, they managed to. I mean, I wasn't there. I'm here in London, but it looked full. But the reason I say it wasn't easy was, as you know, we have this dynamic ticket pricing, and the ticket prices reportedly went from more than $470 to just $13.40 in less than a week. So they made a big effort. They dropped the prices a lot, and that's how they were able to pack the stadium. This is something they need to think about. Again, we're all taking for granted. I don't think there's going to have a problem putting bums on seats for the actual World Cup. Although, Jules, just last night I spoke to one of my fraternity brothers from university, actually, who he bought tickets. He bought the package for 6 games in Philadelphia. And or he bought the rights to purchase tickets, and then he found out that the whole package was going to cost him $72,000, which seemed pretty grotesque if he was going to get the whole package. So I think he's going to decline and maybe place his faith in dynamic pricing. It's done. Theo Hernandez is finally an Al Hilal player. Milan get 25 million euros, which isn't bad considering he had a year left on his deal and that nobody liked him at the club anymore. Jules, is this going to impact his international career?
I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, we saw N'Golo Kante being called up by Didier Deschamps while playing in Saudi Arabia, so maybe not. He didn't want to go there. He wanted to go back to Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid could not just find a deal with AC Milan, who wanted those 25 million euros, got them from Al Hilal, who already have a decent left back in Renan Lodi and have a right back in Joao Cancelo that can also play left back. So I'm not sure how much they really needed Theo. And again, especially with the fact that he didn't fancy it going there, didn't really want to go there. But for Milan, it's great business. There's no doubt about that.
You know what?
After the season that he just had.
I'm going to pick on Theo Hernandez because I do not like that man, Theo. This whole thing about he didn't want to go to Saudi Arabia, he wanted to go to Atletico Madrid, blah, blah, blah. Dude, it's 25 million euros. You're making a mint in Saudi Arabia. Lower your wage demands with Atletico Madrid, take a hit, and then Atletico Madrid can chuck a bit more money into the transfer pot and meet Milan's demands. It's as simple as that. It's really not that difficult. We've seen Gyökeres reportedly try to do something like that to enable a move to Arsenal. So this stuff happens all the time. All the money comes in the same pot. So in the end, I'm going to guess that either he or his agents or whatever, there's only so much money that they were willing to sacrifice to make his dream of a return to Atletico Madrid happen. Maybe I'm just cynical.
Milan continue their pursuit of Bruges. Ardon Jashari, the midfielder, a 38 million euro bid is on the table, but Bruges are reportedly holding on for 40, Gab.
Yeah, so I like Jashari. I'm not sure, although obviously I don't like him as much as he's not my favorite Bruges player, because of course that would be Mr. Champions League Hans van Aken. I don't fully understand this. It's a lot of money to play. I mean, he's a good player, but Milan have gone from basically having no midfield sort of point guard passing playmakers to now having several, because they already signed Samuel Ricci, who, as far as I know, plays exactly the same position. So I don't fully get this. I also, like, if the difference is just 2 million from 38 million to 40 million, you assume this deal gets done. I just wonder, if you're Milan, why not spend the money elsewhere? There's other areas that, I think you need to strengthen. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang will reportedly leave El Qadsia to make room for Matteo Retegui. Jules, what sort of market does he have as a free agent, if any, at 36?
Question. Yeah, he's 36 years old. He had a really good season in Saudi Arabia, scored 17 goals in 30-odd games in the league. So still in good form. I've seen him play. He's still sharp and still has that pace, maybe not as much as when he was younger, but still very, very quick for a forward in the game. Marseille have contacted him to bring him back to the club, for example. They were not too happy when he left, because there was still more to come, and he had a really good year there. So I think they would be happy for him to come back. Is that the kind of club that he can hope for now? Is that the kind of club that will be his market for the season? I don't know. It's really interesting. I didn't think he would leave Saudi Arabia. I thought he would stay the second season and take his money and everything. But clearly he's got higher ambition than Saudi Arabia and wants to come back to you.
Good for him. I think he's made enough money now that he shouldn't let wages stand in the way. Go play where you want to play, young Pierre-Emerick.
Gab, Carlo Ancelotti has made the headlines, but not for the right reasons this time.
Yeah, so you remember his tax trial. He was acquitted of most of the charges, but in the end he was convicted on one of them. It's a 1-year sentence. He's not going to go to prison, because you do not go to prison in Spain for non-violent offenses of less than 2 years. He obviously maintains his innocence. This has to do with this goes all the way back to 2014, when the people who were looking after him at the time, they were found to have set up some offshore companies to deal with his image rights, and there was a dispute over his residency. Was he in Spain? Was he not in Spain? Blah, blah, blah. I think he's just happy that this whole affair is behind him. Gabriel Heinze has joined Mikel Arteta's backroom staff at Arsenal. Jules, your thoughts?
Yeah, he replaced Carlos Cuesta in a way, who left to go to Parma to be the head coach there. Gabi Heinze played for PSG, and he also played for Marseille. So I don't love him as much as if he's just been a PSG legend, but he's still a very good guy, very good coach. Him and Mikel Arteta have been friends for a very long time, since they played together in Paris all those years ago. And I think Gabi, who had been a number one manager, by the way, before in Argentina, I think can bring a lot, not just in terms of assisting Mikel Arteta in the staff, but also to work with defenders, also for the personality, the leadership, all of that. His English is decent too. So I think there's good things to come from Gabriel Heinze at the club.
I think people need to realize, might go and look at his record as a coach, as a number one. And I think he had 4 separate stints, 3 in Argentina and 1 with Atlanta United in MLS. And they kind of generally mostly ended badly. Certainly Atlanta United did. But being a number one and being part of the backroom staff are 2 very different skill sets, I think. And I would put my trust in Arteta in saying that, like, it's not just jobs for the boys, but Heinze can come and bring something different, something important.
Evan Ferguson is being linked with a move to Serie A, Gab, with both Roma and Atalanta being linked with him. Is this the right place for him to relaunch his career, do you think?
I don't know. Roma, ridiculous amounts of pressure. Atalanta, you're going to have, obviously, Scamacca coming back. You're going to have competition for the starting role, and you're going to have a new manager in Ivan Juric, who is, replacing a guy, Gasperini, who'd been there forever. So, frankly, I don't think either one seems ideal. It's great that he wants to challenge himself. I think there's a special player in there. He needs to find his way again. I remember Mark Ogden suggesting that United should have signed Ferguson 2 years ago. Obviously had a bit of a nightmare last year. But you know what? He wouldn't be the only forward who kind of lost his way at Brighton and then did really well elsewhere. Obviously, that was the case with Gyökeres as well. So, maybe he can relaunch it. And good on him for saying, let me explore something abroad.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, we had so much fun the first time around. Let's do it all over again. It's time. It's Texter time. O Globo in Brazil report that Botafogo fired their coach, Renato Paiva, after the Club World Cup because he wasn't willing to take advice from our hero, John Texter. Jules, will Davide Ancelotti be more accommodating?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I mean, we've told you, JT, already, don't get involved in the football side of him. You know nothing about football. I'm not even sure you know too much about running a football club in the first place, let alone the football team itself. So let Davide Ancelotti do his things. He's worked with his dad for a while now. I think he's earned the right of being the number 1-9 and have that chance. In a way, I'm a little bit surprised that Davide went for this job and took it, considering the John Texter is there and we know what John Texter is about now. But good luck to him. But yeah, I don't think he will take any kind of interferences.
Well, it's funny because obviously Davide's dad, Carlo Ancelotti, has a long history of being able to work and succeeding in environments at big clubs with owners or presidents who love giving their advice, whether it's Florentino Perez at Real Madrid, Silvio Berlusconi at Milan, Roman Abramovich at Chelsea, maybe even Nasser at Paris Saint-Germain. So I don't know if he thinks Davide is cut from the same cloth. Maybe he is, but I'll tell you what, if these Renato Paiva stories are true, or maybe just a way to embarrass John Texter even more, since the media in Brazil clearly do not like him, I don't know. But like you, I'm fascinating to see what Davide can do in Rio.
And even more Texter time, Gab, because he got so much stick for trying to change the name of Molenbeek that now he changed his mind again.
Yeah, so Molenbeek's full name is, and this is a Belgian acronym. I am not Belgian adjacent like you are, Jules. So if you know what these letters actually stand for and can pronounce them, please go for it. But Molenbeek are actually RWDM. And she was going to change the name of the club to Daring Brussels. And this prompted a massive outcry from former Molenbeek players, including the legendary Frankie van der Elst, Hugo Broos, a bunch of them. So he's like, okay, fine, screw that. I'm not going to rename it Daring Brussels. I'll call them RWDM Brussels. I think you're kind of missing the point. I think they just don't want the Brussels in there. They're proud of being Molenbeek. They just want the RWDM. I don't know if he thinks that Brussels is such a world capital that maybe having the name Brussels in the name of the club somehow helps them. I'll tell you what, if that was the case, then maybe the clubs in London have got it all wrong. Maybe it should be West Ham United London and Chelsea London and Arsenal London and Spurs Londoners or whatever. I don't know. This seems like such a stupid distraction of a story that he is crapping on with this name change when he has much, much bigger fish to fry, like perhaps paying Botafogo's debts to MLS or avoiding the near catastrophe that happened to Leon. That I don't know what to say anymore. Just other than, John, you're the gift that keeps on giving and entertaining. Another Messi friend is being strongly linked to Inter Miami, Jules.
Yeah, that's Rodrigo de Paul, who apparently wants to leave Atletico Madrid and go to Inter Miami, go to play in MLS with Messi and with Suarez and Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets, all of that. I mean, I'm not sure how financially Inter Miami would be able to do that and recruit a World Cup winner and a player like De Paul, because their three DPs are obviously taken already by Alba, Busquets and Messi. But hey, they found a way of signing Suarez when a lot of us didn't think it was possible. So I'm sure they'll find a way of signing Rodrigo de Paul as well.
Maybe Jorge Mas can sign him to one of his other teams and loan him to Inter Miami.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. The love affair never ends, Gab. FIFA are opening an office in New York, and guess where? In the Trump Tower.
Yeah, so this is not a great look. And the reason it's not a great look is obviously they already have an office. I believe they only have 2 offices outside of Switzerland. One is in Paris, where FIFA was invented, and the other one, of course, is in Miami. But it's not a good look just for historical reasons. Trump Tower is where Chuck Blazer, of course, the disgraced head of CONCACAF, who played a huge part in bringing down FIFA when he was busted by feds and decided to rat everybody out and wore a wire. This is where he lived. This is where he had his office. This is where he had his 2 apartments. One of them was apparently occupied largely by his cats. It's just the optics of it aren't good because of FIFA's history in that building, leaving aside the fact that, his landlord happens to be the president of the United States, which may be transactional and expedient when you're trying to organize a World Cup in the US. So he's getting a lot of stick over it. It's a lot of unnecessary stick. People are saying he's sucking up to the president. I don't think the president particularly cares either way, whether FIFA rents an apartment from him or rents office space from him. Yeah, I don't really follow it. I do think he's taking this a little bit too far, just in terms of honoring the history of FIFA and being mindful of that. Jules, we're done. This brings us to an end. And we only have one show to go in the 2025-26 season. 24-25 season even. I am getting a little bit tearful, but we're going to have to get through it on Monday when we come back. Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.